Genesis chapter 39, verses 1 to 23. I am reading the New Revised Standard Version, the Green Bible. Verse 1. Now Joseph was taken down to Egypt, and Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, the captain of the guard, an Egyptian, bought him from the Ishmaelites who had brought him down there. Verse 2. The Lord was with Joseph, and he became successful man. He was in the house of his Egyptian master. Verse 3. His master saw that the Lord was with him, and that the Lord caused all that he did to prosper in his hands. Verse 4. So Joseph found favor in his sight and attended him. He made him overseer of his house and put him in charge of all that he had. Verse 5. From the time that he had made him overseer in his house and over all that he had, the Lord blessed the Egyptian's house for Joseph's sake. The blessing of the Lord was on all that he had in house and field. Verse 6. So he left all that he had in Joseph's charge, and with him there he had no concern for anything but the food that he ate. Now Joseph was handsome and good-looking. Verse 7. And after a time, his master's wife cast her eyes on Joseph and said, "Lie with me." Verse 8. But he refused and said to his master's wife, "Look with me here. My master has no concern about anything in the house, and he has put everything that he has in my hand." Verse 9. He is not greater in this house than I am, nor has he kept back anything from me except yourself, because you are his wife. Now, then could I do this great wickedness and sin against God? Verse 10. And, and although she spoke to Joseph day after day, he would not consent to lie beside her or to be with her. Verse 11. One day, however, when he went into the house to do his work, and while no one else was in the house, verse 12, she caught hold of his garment, saying, "Lie with me." But he left his garment in her hand and fled and ran outside. Verse 13. When she saw that he had left his garment in her hand and had fled outside, verse 14, she called out to the members of her household and said to them, "See, my husband has brought among us a Hebrew to insult us. He came in to me to lie with me, and I cried out with a loud voice." Verse 15. And when he heard me raise my voice and cry out, he left his garment beside me and fled outside. Verse 16. Then she kept his garment by her until his master came home. Verse 17. And she told him this same story, saying, "The Hebrew servant whom you have brought among us came into me to insult me." Verse 18. But as soon as I raised my voice and cried out, he left his garment beside me and fled outside. Verse 19. When his master heard the words that his wife spoke to him, saying, "This is the way your servant treated me," he became enraged. In verse 20, Joseph's master took him and put him into the prison, the place where the king's prisoners were confined. He remained there in prison. Verse 21, but the Lord was with Joseph and showed him steadfast love. He gave him favor in the sight of the chief jailer. Verse 22, the chief jailer committed to Joseph's care all the prisoners who were in the prison, and whatever was done there, he was one who did it. Verse 23, the chief jailers paid no heed to anything that was in Joseph's care, because the Lord was with him, and whatever he did, the Lord made it prosper. Genesis chapter 29, verses 1 to 23 in the New Revised Standard Version, the Green Bible.